Rebellions are built on hope.
Welcome to another episode of Radio Rebellion, a Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Alberto Calderon. Thank you for being here. And I am joined again by our good friends, Arezou Amin of Space Waffles and our friend Andres from Sithty Minutes. How are you guys doing on this Star Wars Saturday? We always call it Star Wars Saturday, even if it is DC fandom. We know a lot of great stuff just dropped. Thank you, The Batman, for coming right before we start so I can watch that. But how are you guys doing today, this week, everything? How are you guys doing?
Doing okay. Got back from New York Comic Con Monday, threw my whole week off, so just catching up today.
Fair. I'm also doing well. I feel very much I just finished a move. Well, I'm not quite done, as folks may or may not be able to tell. But I feel very like Death Star 2. The super weapon is operational. Like I can play video games and I can watch TV and sleep, but parts of the station are just like, don't go there.
Yeah,
there's no life support there.
Yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The look doesn't matter as long as it's working. You're fine. The look.
That's right.
You can.
That's right.
Like my hair today. I don't know. I usually have a hat on. I don't have one today because I had a haircut recently, and it's whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You paid good money.
Actually, my wife does my hair, so.
Well, then you paid more money.
Show off her handiwork.
I know. I mean,
yeah. You spent entire years of your life to get to haircut level. Like you had to unlock that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's good having someone that can cut your hair and you're okay with what they do, especially with all this COVID stuff that people didn't go for 2 years to get a haircut. I was fine. I did it in my bathroom for 20 minutes or whatever. So, right. All right. So we're not here to talk about my hair. There's a lot of great hair in Star Wars. We should do an episode just on Star Wars hair.
Dameron's hair.
I think that's the beginning of the show. We did it. We already talked about it. Poe Dameron wins. But yeah, so also before we start, because today we're talking Star Wars villains, iconic villains are there, but you mentioned you were in New York Comic Con this past weekend. How was that experience? Like, have you been there before, and how was it this time?
So I hadn't been to New York Comic Con before. I'd actually never traveled for a con before. I've only ever been to the one here in Toronto, which is like, it's great, but it's much smaller than the cons in the States. And so yeah, it was my first time. It was apparently much smaller and different than it usually is. That said, it was pretty cool. I was there with a couple of other people from Star Wars Twitter. Maggie was one of them. Yes. Brad Whipple's another. And we met Charles Soule because he was there. That was pretty awesome. And yeah, we got to see some Star Trek stuff, which I know isn't Star Wars, but still love Star Trek in this house. Yeah. So got to see some Star Trek stuff. And yeah, it was overall a really good experience. And I will definitely go back.
Yeah, obviously, I haven't gone to New York Comic Con or San Diego. I've been to a few in Puerto Rico that they went when I was there. Nothing as big as those. And even though it's still a limited size and fandom back then, I don't know, 20 years ago or 15 years ago, it's not what it is now. Still a cool experience. Just seeing people dressed up is just worth the price admission.
Oh, it was great. The cosplay was awesome. Yeah. People really went all out.
And Andres, not to be left out, you were in New York Comic Con, but you went to Galaxy's Edge this past week or the week before. You went on Twitter a little bit about it. How was that? Because go ahead first, then I'll talk.
Basically, all of my dreams came true. I happened to be in Florida for a wedding, and basically the day after, we lucked out that an event we were going to try and go to just didn't pan out. So we happened to be in Lakeland. I was like, oh, that's like 40 minutes away. We could totally do this drive. We have a rental. It's good. So we just ran off, and it was just incredible. Like I literally, when Galaxy's Edge first opened, I was actually moving out to Colorado. So I told myself I don't have the money to spend right now, so I just won't go. And then of course, pandemic, everything else. Yeah. So went to just Rise of the Resistance. That's all we really had time for. And then Doc Ondars bought Kylo Ren's lightsaber, which we'll bring up for the baddies later, but she is here. And ate food, just ate incredible Star Wars food. I already have the cookbook at home, so I'm like more inspired to go through it now and like finish out the recipes I haven't learned. But it's really wild how immersive it is, and just how I kind of kept forgetting that it was just like a Disney property. Like the first time someone said Bright Suns to me, I literally like just kind of spazzed out. I was like, I know hello is inappropriate, but I just want a Ronto rap. Like,
so that was me. When I went, I knew I gotta do Bright Suns, and I forget the one for when you're leaving, if it's a little bit dark or something.
Till the Spire.
There you go.
And then when it's dark,
Till the
it's Rising Moon.
Yeah. Rising Moon. So I was the one every time I was gonna buy something. I was like, "Oh, to the Spires or whatever," and it's like, "Hey, okay, just here's your Coke and shut up." So I was lucky enough that I've went this past summer. I went over there, didn't go as planned. I was supposed to go with my daughter. She got sick on a drive there, but I went and enjoyed every second that I was there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, my daughter's sick. That's fine. I gotta go to Star Wars. Sure. You're fine. You're with my daughter and my mother-in-law and your brother. You're fine.
For the amount of money it takes to be in that land, yeah, sorry. There's a threshold.
Yes, because her ticket, that's gone. That's $115 or whatever. And we had gotten her for the droid build experience. You can see back there the little droid that I built for her. And I said, I tried to cancel it when we drove like 30 minutes. She got sick, couldn't make it. I wasn't going to force her to drive 2 hours and then be in the hot Florida sun for 5 hours. Okay, we'll go back. But let me see if I can cancel that droid bill because that's $100. And yeah, your wait time is 2 hours. And I'm not going to make it. So I just got on the car, drove. But I couldn't get to Rise of the Resistance. So how was that? Because I've heard that if you go, you got to make sure that you get on it. I unfortunately couldn't make it, but worth it?
100%. 100%. It's extremely immersive, and if you've seen any of the behind the scenes or like documentaries around it, it's a ride that has 3 ride systems in it. And as you transition between them, like there is inherently waiting time to like get the vehicles, get everyone prep, line them up, and then put them in whatever you're doing next. So they literally turn that into like a cosplaying opportunity.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so it's while you're like, in a transport, something else is happening, but you're surrounded by an animatronic Mon Calamari, and you're like, okay, like I know that I will be here for a few minutes, but that's fine. I'm literally surrounded by Star Wars buttons and like a Mon Calamari looking at me all like, I'm surprised. Oh my God. So it's pretty wild. Like there was in our group, there was a little girl who, like, when the doors opened and you get to see like the iconic shot of like all these stormtroopers like looking at you, the girl just kind of started like running, and an employee who was cosplaying essentially as a first order officer like legit stopped her and was like, oh, where are you going? Like, we have to process you first. And just like the way she played it, the kid was just like, okay, and like backing up. And as they're processing you, you're realizing like, oh, they're queuing us up for whatever's going to come next. But it's just so impressively done that you just can't help but like find yourself in it. I thought I was going to try and take photos throughout it because I'm like, there's going to be cool Star Wars stuff to take photos of. And after the first 3 minutes, I just turned off my camera and like put it back in the backpack. I was like, you can't take it in fast enough. So then you're just like, I just have to experience it. Like there's nothing else I can do in this moment.
Yeah, that was me. I was able to do the smuggler's run in the Millennium Falcon. Okay, I'm gonna take all these pictures. So I see people sitting at the table. I'm gonna do all this. And no, okay, come on, we gotta get through. Screw it. Okay, we gotta go and be an engineer. But I'm glad that you had that experience. For me, I don't know how full it was when you went. Since I went on a Sunday, middle of summer, it was packed. So even though I knew I was in Star Wars, then it still felt like a Disney kind of park. That I was still I wasn't 100% immersed in it, but I did love everything that I saw. And you did mention you got your Kylo Ren lightsaber. I got my Dooku one there. Arezou, I know it's not Star Wars land, but you just got a lightsaber. Someone sent you a extremely cool lightsaber.
Yeah. Stellan Geos. It's a 3D printed Stellan Geos lightsaber that my best friend sent me for my birthday. And I love it so much because like Stellan Geos' lightsaber is like a hybrid of Obi-Wan's lightsaber and Kylo Ren's lightsaber all in one. And I guess the legacy saber too. So it's all my favorite characters, Rey, Kylo, Obi-Wan, all rolled into nice one lightsaber for my favorite High Republic character who isn't Martian. So I mean, let's be clear, Martian exists in a category on his own. Yeah. But yeah, so it was pretty
All right,
It
so
was a surprise, but yeah.
I'm gonna get it. Even if it's next week or by Christmas, I think I'm gonna get it. I went to that 3D printer shop on Etsy. They got some great lightsabers. They're very decent price. You can build them, you put them together yourself, or they come already built with some very cool mounts. So I'm pretty sure you're gonna get it because yeah, this time Geo's lightsaber just looks amazing. So I might copy you and have it next time or something. So yeah,
we all got to do it, you know.
yeah.
Right.
All right. So before we get started with our news topic, let's say hi to a few friends. Our friend Tony, Mr. Reds is here talking about his favorite subjects, villains. Our friend Mo, how you doing, Mo? What's up, family? She sent us a couple of questions. One question for our Rebel Thoughts today. Not a question, I should say. Her favorite villains. And we should talk about them as we go through today. And then also our friend Amy Guerra. Hey, y'all. I'm fresh off DC fandom for the past 4 hours, and it was awesome, but I need to get back to my Star Wars comfort zone. That's what we're here for. So let's do it. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready. Let's talk Star Wars and Star Wars news. Star Wars news. So yes, like I think I said every week, Star Wars news right now is it's kind of low. There's not a lot of official news out there, but we did get, and I can't believe I didn't make a little thing down there for this main news topic. But it doesn't matter. It was released, I believe, on Tuesday, the new novel Ronin, which follows the duel from Visions, written by Emma Candon, I believe. Kick me out because I don't have my notes ready. But so Ronin, I know I don't know who I can blame.
Come on, man.
I know it's not like I've been doing this for almost 2 years. I thought it was gonna be on that picture that I posted. I guess it just cut under her name, so I couldn't just.
Canada, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Arthur.
Okay.
So the duel was the first short from Visions, one of the ones that was used for most of the promotions, and is on the top of most people, at least at least top 3. For me, it was my 4th favorite, I think, of the Visions episode. But the concept is great. The characters are awesome. Then they got their own novel. Who cares if it's canon or not? It's a great story out there that needed to be told. I haven't gotten it yet. I'll get it eventually. But my question for you guys, let's start with you, Arezou. Did you read Ronin already? And just a quick, non-spoiler kind of, not review, but what you can say out there.
Yeah, so I did read Ronin, and the world that Emma has built is so fascinating because the concepts are familiar. You know, you hear the words Jedi, Sith, the Force, Kyber, but the way they're kind of laid out is so different from any other Star Wars story being told that I'm almost like you could change these names, these concepts, and have this be a completely original sci-fi concept. Like that's how removed it felt, but that's like not a bad thing.
Yeah,
I don't think, because you know, if they want to take this fresh approach into Star Wars and this new way of looking at the light and the dark and the Sith and the Jedi and all of that, then this is definitely the way to do it, is in something like Ronin. So I would say if you haven't read it yet, just go in with no expectation, go in treating it almost like completely un-Star Wars sci-fi, and just kind of let it take you.
Cool. Do you have it, Andres?
No, it is on its way because
Okay.
I have gotten the Goldsboro edition. I had pre-ordered it on a whim, and before Visions had like dropped, and then I am in love with the duel, so I was like, perfect. But yeah, for me, I am in love with the phrase on the back of the book. I believe it revolves around like I no longer yield to like the Jedi, the Lords of the Jedi, and something about like not turning his back on his people anymore. I don't know who says it. I don't know. It's just like written on the back of the picture of the book. And for me, that just like really resonates with me. I don't know why, but it just sounds like a quote from someone who's just like been out there, seen the world, and then decides like, okay, I know that turning towards my people will come off as being evil, but so be it. Like to have that line, like the line about his people so close to no longer yielding to the Jedi or like following their lords. Yeah, just as we normally understand Star Wars, I was like, okay, that's a pretty interesting view. It's very Ahsoka-ish in that sense of like, if turning back on y'all is bad, then I guess I'm bad, but like I need to turn in this direction.
Yeah. I'll get it eventually. Again, everything I've heard about it, it's just great. People are just raving about Emma's work, Ronin, all the characters and the themes inside them. So I'll get it eventually, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in depth. So Ronin, if you guys haven't gotten it yet, it's out there. Get it. And I guess they talked about it a little bit a few weeks ago, how important it is to pre-order books, especially now, because a lot of them are kind of, there are not enough orders out there, they get delayed. So go ahead, pre-order all those books that you want to read from your favorite authors, and it helps everyone. So yeah, Ronin, make sure to go catch it. And just real quick, because I'm not very versed in everything that's happened, but there is a big writer strike out there. AATSE, I believe, is the
it's
people
not writers,
doing.
it's the production crew.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Anybody
Production.
who works on set
Right.
who isn't covered by a different union, like the Directors Guild or something.
Thank you. Again, this is why I don't cover this, because I'm not into this. But
I used
what
to
I
do
do,
this kind of stuff.
yes. So thank you for being here. And Andres, I know you deal with all the politics stuff, so maybe you also have something to say about it. But the main thing, even if you don't know what the strike is about, it's about people asking for a better way of life. If you don't get paid enough, your working condition sucks, and I've never been on a set or anything like that, but if you watch all the behind the scenes, you know how difficult it is for everyone involved, and how important people say stay for the credits. So you know everyone that worked on these movies and TV show, and if they're saying that their working conditions are not the best, that there are issues working 12-hour days, 14-hour days, no sleep, driving home, basically like under the influence, or for other people that go out there drinking and going out, you're putting your life and others into trouble. So yes, we're all for it. Star Wars TV shows and movies, they can wait. It doesn't matter. Make sure everyone, especially now, we all are going through this. We all want to be kind of considered as human beings, not just employees. We've all been there. So give your support to them. So real quick, if you guys want to mention anything, if not, we'll move along.
Yeah, just support IATSE and what they're asking for. 16-hour days and no break becoming the norm. They are the first ones in and the last ones out.
Yeah.
So they absolutely deserve what they are asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And yes.
Yeah. And when you think of things that you've seen and the work that goes into creating it, like I think of in Game of Thrones, they had the Battle of Winterfell. They legit shot it all at night. So it's like, this is pretty bonkers work in the sense that, like, to get some of these shots for the media that we consume, like, you have to be either at night or doing something crazy or build an entire set. Like, this is not easy work. The TV makes it look easy and like, oh yeah, it's just 30 minutes. Like, that's one episode.
Yeah.
How hard can it be? But like, we have no idea. And they're simply asking to be treated like humans instead of like, house elves in like a castle that's magical. Because I don't like that Potter universe, but yeah, it's like being a bunch of Dobbies, and it's like they're people, they're actual people.
Like I've mentioned it on Twitter, but one of my first film jobs, it was an indie movie, nice set, nice people working there, but we had 1 week of night shoots, so that's 5 working days of night shoots, which means the people working there are working 16 hours straight. Their days and nights are flipped around. And it got to the point where me and one of the other crew members would just sneak off into the stairwell to take a nap against the wall because, by day 4, you're running purely on caffeine and adrenaline. So it's the job. Everybody knows it's the job. But if you're going to do that kind of work, you should be fairly compensated for it.
I mean, still, I work 8-hour days, mostly in an office. And by hour 4, I'm like, okay, when do I go to lunch? So yes. So we're all in favor of what they're asking, better working conditions. Who's not in favor of this? So, and I saw someone post on Twitter, all those great movies and TV shows from DC fandom, a lot of these people are going to go on strike soon. So everything you're cheering now, cheer for them when they're asking for everything they're asking. So go ahead. All right. So before we continue, let's say hi to a few more people. Our friend Dale is here. Hello there. Dale Earthman, General Dale. How you doing? Our friend Roberto Venegas with his General Kenobi response to Dale. And also friend Blue Milk Mama is here. Hi, everyone. What a wretched high was common villain. I will take that as a compliment. And she says, Ronan is just a lovely read so far. The prose is just amazing. And Amy adds, definitely support the IATSE workers. I don't want to consume media made on the backs of people working in terrible conditions. Again, talking Star Wars, and we know this politics in Star Wars, right, Andres? So
That's
we gotta
right.
mention the real world issues out there. All right, but we're here to talk Star Wars villains, some of the best out there. So we'll see how quickly we get to some of these, how our conversation gets derailed by the chat, some of our panelists, or myself, because as you can see from today, I'm all over the place. But let's talk Star Wars villains. All right, so villains. This is one of those kind of topics that you think of Star Wars villain. Yeah, Darth Vader, the Emperor. And then you start going through the list, and there's like 50 that you can start picking up. And all of them are great for different reasons. So that's what we're here to kind of discuss and see what we love so much about Star Wars villains, which type of villains that we kind of gravitate towards, and are they really villains? Are they just misunderstood? Are they just trying to live their life peacefully in the outer rims, and there's someone coming to try to assimilate you or whatever? So we'll get to it, but who knows, right? Arezou, you have your Kylo Ren. No, especially not on this show, like every time. So you have your Kylo Ren shirt, and we'll get to him. And Andres, you mentioned you have your Kylo Ren saber. So there's a lot of Kylo Ren love. He's back here. Also, there he is. Up there. There's Kylo Ren back there. So, Arezou, starting with you, what makes a good Star Wars villain, or what do you look forward to when a new Star Wars villain is introduced?
What makes a good villain generally, and I think Star Wars does this very well, is motivation. It all comes down to motivation, because heroes are great. I love heroes. Got a lot of them on the wall behind me. But heroes are generally motivated by I have to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Villains are always motivated by I have to do my thing, which in my head is the right thing, for a very personal reason. Be it, Kylo Ren's like whole issues with his family is his very personal reason. Or every villain I know has gone out of my head. Or Asajj Ventress and like everything she has been through with the Night Sisters, with like her old master, with being on Rat Attack, all of that is very personal to her, and that's what makes her the way she is. So they're not motivated by cause, they're motivated by what the world or the galaxy has done to them. And I think it just makes it more interesting to me, because the stakes are more personal.
Right. What do you think, Andres? Is there anything else that kind of pulls you when it comes to Star Wars villains?
Yeah, I really agree with what Arezou mentioned. I would only add, I love the tension of a villain who knows what's around the corner. So for me, Count Dooku, for example, is a sleeper hit. I always forget how much I love Count Dooku until I watch Attack of the Clones. Yeah, there it is. There's that. Because he's right. Like when you get to Revenge of the Sith and you go back and watch Attack of the Clones, you're like, oh, he was right. And he was essentially like, okay, if the Jedi, like his calculus is if the Jedi are part of the Republic and the Republic has already been co-opted, we shouldn't be Jedi. Like the right thing would be to essentially overthrow the Republic that we're supposed to be serving. And that makes him Sith at that point. So he's like, fine, whatever. So I love it when villains have that kind of a pull where it's like they have their personal stake, but on top of that, when it also has this element of like, there's another evil. Like I love those mid-tier villains because sometimes that's their play. Like I'm doing this to try and kill this guy. And now that you, the hero, have approached me, like I'm trying to bring you in because together, like we could actually do this. And
Maul is a great example of that. Yeah. Maul in the Siege of Mandalore. Seeing sort of what he knows what's around the corner, and granted the Force is helping him and he's trying to convince Ahsoka of this, and he almost has her. I feel like she's like, okay, because she is not exactly harboring any delusions about the Jedi right now. But it's the minute Anakin gets brought into it, and that becomes her personal, well, Anakin wouldn't, and I don't believe you anymore. But otherwise, like, he is just right enough that Ahsoka's like, okay, I'm listening, until suddenly, it all goes wrong.
You imagine if on one end, Maul walks in with Ahsoka, and on the other, Count Dooku walks in with Kenobi, all on the same kind of mindset, and then confront Palpatine, and he's like, "Oh crap, I kind of messed up here."
They all just walk in like, "We need to talk."
Yeah.
So yeah, with a lightsaber.
Yes, with aggressive negotiations. So I agree with you guys are saying, and it's funny because sometimes you hear people there, I just love villains, they're just bad for no reason, they just want to be evil. And then you have the others, like you say, no, there's some motivation out there. What they're doing is not really wrong in their eyes. And it's also how we as people kind of change, especially as we get older. Because Palpatine, when I watched as a kid, yeah, he's this creepy old guy that shoots lightning, but yeah, he's awesome. And then you start getting older, you see the prequels, and you see how all the long game that he was playing, and then okay, now I understand a little bit more. And then you get someone like Markion that will come into it later. I say Markion, not Martian, but we'll just come
The
up.
whole thing.
Yeah, and then he at first he's like, yeah, he's just this kind of not smuggler, not pirate out there, just creating havoc, causing havoc. But then you start learning a little bit more about his history with the Jedi and all that stuff, and why the Republic wants to move out there. And then with this new book on this new comic series coming out, that gonna explain a little bit more. It's gonna be great to learn more about them. And as we go into Count Dooku later, it's a character again. Kevin Scott did a great job. That just reading Dooku Jedi Lost kind of changed my mindset on Dooku, because yeah, I liked him in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, but yeah, he's just there, like you said, a mid-tier level villain, just with Palpatine there, just kind of in the wing, just waiting for Anakin to kind of rise and take his place. But then reading his whole backstory became one of my favorites. So jumping right there, do you think we need more stories told from the villain/antagonist point of view? We have Dooku, Jedi Lost, we have Tempest Runner, we have the Eye of the Storm coming soon, kind of going the same way with Markion, and then the Acolyte also at the end. Do you think we need more stories in that from that point of view?
Yes, because like we see how like War of the Bounty Hunters, nobody is
Okay.
strictly a villain
Mhm.
in War of the Bounty Hunters. They're a villain to somebody, but they're a hero to themselves.
Sure.
Boba Fett being a great example. He is a hero to himself because he thinks he's doing what he's got to do. Obviously, Leia and Lando feel very differently, but
So
like
just
look
a
at
tad.
and
Yeah.
then like that spun off into something now with Kira and with the Knights of Ren, and they are, I guess, quote unquote villains because they're not fighting for the good cause of whatever this era is, but they have so much going on, like for themselves, such a rich internal life, such rich motivation, and that sort of arguably are maybe doing the right thing but maybe in the wrong way. So I think that's my long answer. Short answer, yes, absolutely more stories focusing on the villainous and the morally ambiguous.
Yeah, I agree, just 100%. And if the US is the empire, right, in like that 77 vision of Star Wars, like for the current audience, like I think this emphasis on like anti-heroes and villains that you're seeing play out in like pop culture is, if people like know that as a inspiration for George Lucas now, then that means like as a US citizen, you engage with it knowing that like you're essentially, if you're a fan of the rebellion, then you essentially grew up in an empire and then chose to root for the other team that's like blowing up state property. So I think like having those stories of villains and getting to explore those like motivations in Star Wars creates that space for people who are like learning US history right now and after 2020 and just all throughout life, to still be able to engage with like their fandom of choice and have other people that they can like layer their stories on, because again, they think they're doing the right thing in their eyes. It's just the system and the world that they're in is like, no, that's wrong.
Which is sorry to cut you off, but it's one of the things that makes me extremely excited for the Andor TV show. It's hoping, because we really haven't heard anything, hoping to see that from the Empire side, that people just working a job that decided that I need a place to work because I need money and I'm gonna go work with the Empire. This is the new government out there, so I gotta go work on this project. I just got the blueprints for a station they're building. They don't know, right?
Yeah.
So
They're just
I
moving the
hope,
crane. They have no idea what they're building.
and even if they know, it's like I have to survive somehow. So I got, which it's kind of that vision, the village bride, not village bride, Lopa Nocho, right? One of the sisters. We gotta work with the Empire because they're here. They're gonna take over. So the lesser of two evils, and then Lopa and her dad are like, no, we gotta save ourselves and our culture. So it's kind of that same thing So I hope that we can see this from the Empire side, just people doing a normal job, but and even now, just seeing from the Empire side why they think they're in the right, because not everyone is Sidious and Palpatine out there. They have their own visions, like you said. They just chose a side. So I'm hoping that we see that going up with Andor when it comes out. Hopefully we hear something from Andor soon. Then Roberto is adding, it's great when you have both villains, those who want to be just evil and those that have personal stakes. And Amy also saying, I absolutely love how Sithty Minutes highlights those analogies between Star Wars, US political and dynamics. That's why I don't invite him too much, because he makes me kind of not know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
But
stop it.
I know you're here. It's like I'll say the same thing when Arezou and Amy and Maggie are here talking High Republic. It's like, okay, I'm glad you guys are here because you help me see it from different perspective.
It's that SpongeBob meme. You're just like, write that down.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. So many, completely different, but so many times in college, so I gotta write something and do a project. I'm driving home, have this great idea. I'm gonna write it down. Okay, what did I say? So I gotta start recording things to make sure I don't forget. I'm sure that everyone goes through that.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of different Star Wars villains out there. We have, like we mentioned, we have Sith, we have Vader, Maul, Dooku, the Emperor, and a bunch other. Then we have the Empires, Tarkin, Krennic. I know you want to talk about Krennic, Andres, Thrawn. And then we have the others like Jabba the Hutt. Ventress is kind of in between. Markion, of course. All those different type of villains out there. We kind of associate the villains with the Sith mostly, but there's, like I mentioned, all those different villains out there. Do you have a preference on what type of villains you like currently in Star Wars? And moving forward, is there one type you want to kind of hoping you get more of those?
I like force sensitive villains more, and like I've said this on Space Waffles, and I say this all the time. I don't like Palpatine. Full stop. I like Lego Palpatine. Palpatine
cool.
Very much. Yeah. Otherwise, I love the force sensitive villains because the Jedi stuff and the Force stuff is the plot that interests me more overall.
Yeah.
So that's why. That said, going forward with the High Republic, I'm loving the Nihil as villains. Shocked, I know. I'm just because they are so different, because they're not allied with the government the way the Empire or First Order is, and they're not, allied with the Force at all. They are their own thing, and they are just this whole. I think it might have been Charles Soule, compared them to a pyramid scheme of pirates, and it's just there's a whole new concept. So that's what I'm interested in, with the current storytelling.
Cool.
Yeah. I love Director Krennic. I would pay good money to see more of him, only because he's probably the most relatable villain to me, as far as people you deal with in the office or group projects, and it's there's always a Krennic somewhere. He is enthusiastic about his little death laser, and is very mad at Tarkin for trying to take the credit in the film, and that's such a that was such a motivating force. And I was I've worked with this person, not on projects with this high of stakes, but someone who just they are going to take as much credit as they can, and you got to pamper them the whole way through, or else it's a whole drama scene.
They go above your head to the bigger boss to try to bring you down. We went to Vader. I'm still in charge of the project. Shut up, dude. Just go do your work.
Go tell the teacher you're not working.
Yeah. He CC'd him, and it's really? Did you have to? Him and Tarkin have done missions together, so it's very interesting. That just crossed my mind, where it's this guy's asking, he's well, Tarkin made me shoot a laser, and he's I know what Tarkin's capable of. We're not here to talk about his kill count.
Yeah, don't even try. But I agree, and I think I'm with you also. Since Jedi and the Force is my favorite thing in Star Wars, I do like those villains and the High Republic, especially the Jedi that are kind of questioning what it means to be a Jedi or follow the Force, and where that might lead to. It's what really interests me in going forward, what these new type of villains or antagonists, whatever it might be. So yeah, Sith are cool, obviously, but they're the different side to the same coin or whatever with the Jedi. So you kind of know what you're getting with them. But I like kind of the in-between, like you mentioned first, Andres, talking about Dooku, what made them change? What made you go from this side of the Force to this side? And that's what I'm really interested in now. And with Imperials, of course, is like I mentioned before, it's why did they choose that side at this point? And that's what I want to see. And I'm pretty sure we got to get Krennic in Andor to get a little bit more of Ben Mendelsohn. So hopefully we'll get him there. And these pirates and smugglers and all those guys are cool, kind of in between to kind of help with the stories. Boba Fett, Kira, and all those others, I don't see them as villains, at least not in this same echelon as the others. They're living their life kind of away from the law, but they're not really the main villains of the story. So I don't kind of put them in that category. But yeah, they can kind of mess up with our heroes a little bit.
That's the thing. They're not the overall villains of the saga. They're just the villains in somebody's story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But they're not, changing the galaxy with their death lasers or whatever.
That's something that I hope we don't get too much moving forward, is this villain that just wants to take over the galaxy because it's fun. It's, okay, we've seen this for years. Just give me something else. And I think that's what's cool about the High Republic is they're not trying to conquer the galaxy. They just want to, they want to kind of take the Republic out of it, but for different reasons, not because they want to kind of be in charge of everything. But so Palpatine, so you mentioned you're not a fan. You're not
Full
a fan. Yeah, full stop. Not going because I don't want to say I know, but a little bit about your thoughts on Rise of Skywalker, but not talk about execution-wise. Do you agree with the decision to bring Palpatine back, or would you have preferred to just either a new villain, a new main bad, or just keep Kylo as the main bad for this last chapter?
Me, okay. Not talking execution. Purely,
because that's
because you know how I feel about it. Purely theoretically, my problem when they announced it in the trailer was that the suggestion wasn't Palpatine's brand of evil perpetuates because, you never quite get rid of the problem. It's you never quite get rid of this guy.
Okay.
Like, I'm not American, so I can't totally speak to American politics, but it's like saying if you vote Trump out, everything goes away. It doesn't. There's other problems.
It didn't?
But by bringing him back, it's like, no, Palpatine is the problem, not the ideas that Palpatine perpetuated. That was my problem. It's like, I would have liked to see it be, I know they brought him in at the last second, but what's his name? The new general, Allegiant General, Pride.
Oh.
A character like Pride is somebody who, got his start in Palpatine's empire, came up through the army in Palpatine's empire, and then the empire fell, but he never gave up on that. He is like one of those fanatical guys who just bought what they were selling and never gave up on it. So if they had taken that idea, maybe implemented it sooner, or I would buy it if they like just set it up in 9. Why not? Like if that had been the big bad, like the driving force behind the First Order was this cluster of like late middle-aged Imperials who never really let go of Palpatine's ideals, and they've been working to make things Palpatine's empire again, but without Palpatine, that would have been, like, in my view, the way to go. So, like, because by making it just Palpatine, it's like, he is the problem, and now that he is gone, there is no more problem, but that's not true. That's not true in real life. That's not true. I know it's a story, but if we're trying to draw that kind of parallel, that's not true there either. So
we said a lot here. Yeah, it's Star Wars, but a lot of it kind of relates to real life, and goes to show you why I love having you here. That makes a lot more sense. Even though I didn't mind Palpatine coming back, I've said I enjoy Rise of Skywalker. I don't have a lot of the issues that some other people have. So I didn't mind too much that he was there or the reasons why. Was it explained there or not? But what you're saying, because we're living it right now. Yeah, whatever happened with the election, 2016, 2020, 2021, January 6th, right? Yeah, the guy's gone. Yeah, we won. Now we're still in the same mess we were 5 years ago. So it's great. Yes, that would have worked 100%. Even if you have Palpatine, he was pretty messed up. Just in the corner, do my bidding because I can't anymore.
They kind of had that in the books and in Battlefront 2 as well. That, he's gone. What's left of his empire is a mess. And he left these like robot versions of himself behind. I think Sentinels are called, like, to carry on his bidding. It's not Palpatine, but it is him sort of ensuring that whatever he's set up continues to pay off. But they show it in the books that the Empire, the galaxy, I should say, continues to be a complete mess after Palpatine's gone. I'm like, okay, so you see that the problem is not the man, it's the regime.
Yeah.
Right.
But then, like, they capped off with, actually, it was the guy. And I'm like, well, I wish you'd finished the regime line of thought, because I thought that was interesting. But
that's a great point. What about you, Andres?
I 100% agree. Like, I appreciate canonically that, like, I appreciate canonically that, like, Palpatine shows up at the end, because it really cements a villain who also planned for losing, right? Like, if his end game was the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy is the end game for the contingency where he actually loses at the end of, like, what he thinks is the final battle. And then the sequel trilogy is like his last Hail Mary pass, hoping that everyone's going to be too, like, old, weak, you know, jaded to actually fight him if he comes back. So that's cool. But I agree with Arezou in the sense that, like, I feel like Rise of Skywalker reveals that it was made by a Western studio, right? Like, to finish the regime line of thought means to, like, really tackle, like, okay, well, who would rise up? What would that person look like? And, like, how would you craft that story? And that would hit maybe a little too close to home when they do that research, because they're essentially looking at, like, how do you get from Reconstruction America to 2020 America, and recognizing that there's different people in that story. But yeah, you know, it's like, for me, that's also what makes the final part where all the ships show up, like, lose a little bit, because it's like, okay, so Palpatine was bad, and Palpatine convinced an entire galaxy to, like, blow up Alderaan and Hosnian Prime, as if we're going to keep that legacy going. And yet, when the Falcon showed up, there were enough people who had a change of heart. Like, the 2020 election was kind of close. Like, if that same thing were to play out, you're talking about almost a 1-to-1 split, like a little higher than that, but not by much. If all of those people showed up on a field somewhere with their spaceships and cars and we're like, let's go.
Well, it could still be a 1-to-1 split. This was just the final order. It's not the rest of the first order. They're somewhere else.
That's true. Yeah. So there's
a lot of people showing up to vote in a blue area.
Fair. Exegol just happened to be surrounded by Whole Foods, and they were like, they're doing what over there?
All right, so this is turning to 60 minutes here, but we love it. Yeah. So just rounding up, one last thing more for Palpatine, as our friend Roberto Venegas is saying, yes, I don't care how, just keep bringing Palpatine back, which is fine. Again, I love the character. He's one of the reasons the original trilogy kind of took off all this idea of great villains out there. He was in the shadows. He was mentioned once, I think, in A New Hope. Of course, we see him in Empire Strikes Back in the hologram, and then finally he shows up in Return of the Jedi. Everything with our prequel trilogy, and then the sequels, and now with Mandalorian and the Bad Batch kind of showing more cloning. People are thinking maybe this is the bridge to kind of make more sense if whatever they show in the movie wasn't enough for you guys. In general sense. But last thing on Palpatine, which Palpatine do you prefer? The prequel trilogy kind of, I'm just a senator. Then we have then he turns to Darth Sidious at the end. We have the OT Emperor, and then the kind of shriveled old, the boomer, like Moses at the end. Which Palpatine do you prefer?
Prequel.
I think I might go, even though I do love the one in the original trilogy. I think the manipulations just from the background, I'm just doing, you gave me powers. It's not my fault. I'll give them back. And then in the back, yes, with my hood and telling Maul that finally will reveal himself, kind of playing both sides. So again, he has 3 movies to do all this, but I do love that. And comic-wise, I love in some of the comics, and what's the book? Something of the Sith, when he's with Vader and they go...
Lords of the Sith.
Lords of the Sith. I love that Darth Sidious that's trying to push Vader a little bit. Oh, you think you can take me? You're not ready. So I do love that Palpatine out there.
Yeah, same. I'm going to go prequel. That's prequel Palpatine, episode 3. Absolutely blew my mind as a kid. I think I was like 12 when that came out. So I was just in a theater like, oh, he played everyone. Everyone's dead.
Were you one of those that didn't know they was the same person when you were watching the?
I was definitely
wasn't the The
I was
Palpatine,
definitely too
the
young.
Emperor.
I think I might have had an idea by the time I got to Revenge of the Sith, just by virtue of age. But
Sure.
episode 1 and episode 2, no clue.
No idea.
I didn't put it together until after episode 3 came out and I watched the 6. Then I'm like, oh, it's the same actor.
Yeah.
That's what I think I mentioned it before. I love about doing this show and get to talk to people of different age group, because for me it's I knew the Emperor from the OT because I'm from that era, but so watching the prequel trilogy, I know how it's gonna play out. Like Tony said, Mr. S, that he likes a prequel because we all know what he'd become, and that's one of the reasons I like it. But then hearing from people that grew up Star Wars watching the prequel trilogy, that was that big reveal for them. And also, what? Anakin is turning evil? So it's great how, at least myself and people my age might take it for granted. Yeah, Vader kind of telling Luke that he's his father is the biggest reveal in Star Wars. But if your first foray into Star Wars is the prequels, there's no way Anakin is going to turn evil. What? Is the same guy? And all that stuff. It's out there.
That I knew. I had seen the OT. I just didn't, because Palpatine isn't really in the OT until Return of the Jedi. So I just didn't put it together until the hood went up in Revenge of the Sith. And then I started to realize that they look the same. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so Mo is saying prequel Palpatine is so much. I am the Senate. It's scary AF. Yeah. And became one of the greatest memes out there.
And Mitch McConnell's slogan. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Okay, Mitch. So if we talk Palpatine and series, we gotta talk about his apprentice, I guess the most iconic villain out there, and that's Darth Vader.
Okay, I was going to say Darth Maul. I was like, and Darth Maul.
No, I didn't give you the chance. Sorry. We'll come back to Maul, obviously. So Darth Vader, I don't know what we can say about that. Darth Vader that hasn't been said before, but I guess I'll start with this. Do you appreciate the different way that we're seeing Vader now? Because OT Vader, and even prequel trilogy, he's just a bad guy. He's gone. He's no longer Anakin. He's just determined to be the baddest man out there. But there's a lot of comics and Lord of the Sith and a bunch of Charles Soule comics and even the new ones kind of showing that he's still in that in-between, kind of visiting Padme's grave, I believe, in one of the comics, and he gets confronted by the handmaidens. And he still has this kind of duality when he meets Ahsoka in Rebels. Do you like this new kind of evolution of Darth Vader, showing some of his empathy a little bit? Or would you prefer not just keep him as the evil guy that we knew from 1980? Andres, if you want to start.
Yeah, I've been loving the humanization of Darth Vader, mostly because I remember distinctly when Disney, shortly after they bought Star Wars, where there was the comic where Boba Fett informs Vader that the rebel pilot that blew up the Death Star had the last name was Skywalker, and he like cracks the glass because he realizes Palpatine lied in episode 3. So I've been loving it from that angle, because I always viewed, as a kid, once I got to the end of the prequel trilogy, I was like, oh, this is actually a 6-movie tragedy. Like, this dude just wanted a wife, a family, his kids, everything. Like, that was his idealized vision of life, and he got thrust and used as a pawn, and he's just kind of like stewing over that until his son basically blows up his boss's like favorite shiny toy, and then he's like, oh wait, that's my son, okay. And like that's what creates the conflict for me in the OT. So like I love that they've been playing up on it with like the Vader Immortal VR game and like the different comic series, and showing those motivations of like he's going further into the dark side just so that, because he's more pissed at Darth Sidious. And he's like, maybe I'll get my son, or maybe I'll be strong enough to kill my emperor. Either way, like I win. And that's what he's like pushing towards by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, because his like 20 attempts to revive Padme just haven't worked out so far.
He tried building that big castle there with the moment mass, and I'm gonna bring her back, and then he got played for a fool again. Are you excited to see Darth Vader back for the Kenobi series, or are you like some people out there? And sorry, Arezou, I don't know if I let you answer that previous question, but you can go. Are you excited to see Darth Vader? Some people out there, they're going to mess up with A New Hope and whatever happens there. Are you excited for more Vader? And with Kenobi, it has to be an emotional reunion of sorts.
I think my conspiracy theory that I've carried with me since they made this announcement is that they're saying it's Darth Vader, but you don't hire and pay Hayden Christensen if you're going to put him in a mask and not take him out of it. So I think it's going to be like an Anakin / Vader. Like maybe, I know they're having a big duel or whatever, but I'm thinking it's going to be like in their heads on some other plane. I don't think Kenobi's going to leave Tatooine and be like, it'd be fun if I had a sword fight with Darth Vader. I don't think that's going to happen. I could be wrong.
Got this brand new saber. I gotta try it out on someone. I remember last time I cut 3 of his limbs. Let me finish it off.
Want to stretch my old muscles? Like, I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm excited to see what they do because it's Hayden Christensen. So I think they're going to play up that more emotional side of it. I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah. And just because it's a limited series, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like maybe even an extended flashback of like a major mission in the Clone Wars, which, you have plenty of years, plenty of battles to just be like, yeah, whatever. They had this conversation at one point in it. And like, you could just play that out in live action and overlay that with like whatever Kenobi's thinking about that week or whatever crazy Jawa has like dragged him into for that episode or whatever. So yeah, it'd be interesting, but I agree with Arezou. You don't pay Hayden Christensen money to then put him in the helmet. Like, I know they did a great job with Pedro Pascal and Mandalorian, but I just don't see it.
Yeah,
now when you can get that haircut again, like it's right there.
And you won't have him doing the voice for Vader, so it wouldn't kind of be the same. I agree and I disagree. Because I do think he's gonna leave Tatooine. That's just my thing. I think he's gonna leave and there's gonna be a lightsaber fight. But I do hope that we get that kind of mental force connection of them just talking and trying to hash it out. And there's no way. So I do hope it goes that way because this has to be an emotional show, an emotional not reconciliation, but emotional time for Obi-Wan kind of trying to, everything has happened in the past 5 or 10 years. So I do hope that happens. But speaking of Hayden Christensen, did you get a chance to see him also at New York Comic?
I did actually. So I thought about doing a photo op or something, and then I realized, come celebration time, there is a strong chance it'll be Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. So let me wait.
Let's save it.
Let me save my money and wait and see. But one of my friends was getting his autograph, so I waited in line with her just to see him. So I waved and he waved back, and that's the extent of my my interaction with Hayden Christensen. But I'm going to treasure it anyway.
Oh man, that's awesome. All right, so yeah, Darth Vader again is one of those classic villains, probably in that top list for most people out there, especially for Star Wars. But so what other classic, when you think classic Star Wars villains, I guess we have Darth Maul out there, Count Dooku, of course. But which other kind of classic Star Wars villains do you think kind of deserves a spot on one of those tops out there? Let's change.
I don't know. I'm about to start yelling about Martian.
All right. So one more thing before we go to
Martian.
Yeah, he is becoming a classic one. So just finishing up, I guess rounding out this kind of Sidious circle of apprentices, you have Maul and Dooku. Which one do you prefer, and has it changed? Because at least for myself, I'll start Darth Maul, of course. Seeing him the first time in Force Awakens, the Phantom Menace kind of blew everything out of the water. What was possible in Star Wars, double lightsaber, red and black paint, horns, all this devil kind of wrecking shop. And of course, he got better and better with Clone Wars, Rebels, his little stint in Solo, and we'll see where else he kind of ends up. I love his whole story and how it ends with Kenobi on Tatooine. But like I mentioned, Dooku just kind of, for myself, just blew him out of the water with Dooku Jedi Lost, because I just learned so much about his past, his interaction with other Jedi, with, I'm blanking on names. And I'm hosting a Star Wars trivia next week. That's why I'm hosting and not answering questions. Yeah. But everything that he's went through just to the end to say, you guys kind of lied to me, or we have all these kind of visions out there, you guys are not doing enough, you took me away from my family, they don't want me anymore, and I gotta go and be the Count of Sereno, which I was supposed to be. So I just love his story so much that he became one of my favorite villains out there. So if I had to choose between Maul and Count Dooku, there's a reason I spent good money on this lightsaber. So yeah. So if you had to choose, if you were Sidious at that point, that you're sitting in your kind of conference room, you have to do a Sith apprentice interview, and Maul walks in, a little Sabrak tuxedo, and then Count Dooku with his cape walks in, and you have to choose one apprentice. Who are you siding with?
I think Dooku makes a better apprentice, but I think Maul's a better character. Not better character. I prefer Maul as a character. But I think Dooku, like on paper, makes a much better apprentice because, former Jedi apprentice, Count of Sereno, kind of has his stuff together. Maul is very angry, which I think Palpatine exploits. Palpatine breaks him, and we see this very broken Maul living in the garbage with his spider legs in Clone Wars. So Maul has a journey all his own that I absolutely adore and I find very engaging and very fascinating. But if I'm conducting an interview for a apprentice, I'm going to pick Count Dooku.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I feel like Count Dooku is just, you've got the former Jedi apprentice, so he knows some of the lightsaber forms, and you don't have to teach him that much. Just tweak it. And on top of that, Count Serrano, money. You can really grease some wheels without dipping into Republic banks.
You don't have to pay your intern. It's great.
Exactly. It all works out.
So is Dooku pro-union, or would he be on the other side right now?
No.
You can't be a count and pro-union. That's not how that works.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work that
way. Right. So Roberto is saying he needs to read Jedi Laws. You have to. It's a quick read. Great. It's one of my favorites out there. Yeah. And you get more with Ventress. Oh man, I heard.
You got some High Republic, some little nuggets.
Man. Yeah. I mean, how long have they been planning this High Republic stuff? They're just showing. It's just great. It's whatever. Then our friend, he's here, Emperor Holocron, also adding that Gallius Rex is really amazing in his opinion. And Amy's adding also, Ray Sloan is so devoted to her personal ascena, is willing to do all sorts of evil in the process.
I love Ray Sloan.
Yeah.
I love Ray Sloan. I wish we had more Ray Sloan in the movies. Hux knows her.
There's your regime storyline that you could have sprinkled throughout, because who takes over from Ray Sloan? I assumed something happens because she's not even in Rise of Skywalker, presumably.
She's this looks messy. I'll be done.
Yeah. All right. So let's do it. Everyone's waiting for it. Marky on row. This is
she's like clocking in, baby.
All right, let's go.
Let me loose. So I don't want to say let's keep it spoiler free, but I know some people out there might have not up to date on everything High Republic. But Marky on Row and when the now were announced as this new evil that we've never had in Star Wars, and then we have Light of the Jedi comes out, and we're introduced to this great character of Marky on Row. And if you're kept up to date, everything that he's done till Rising Storm, how unfortunately that ends, and then moving forward. So a brand new character in Star Wars that's introduced in this new era has a lot to compete with. Palpatine, Vader, Maul, Dooku, Kylo Ren, a bunch of others. What are your thoughts on Marky on Row, and where does he rank? Not 1, 2, 3, but do you put him up there with those classic Star Wars villains? And of course, Arezou, we have to start with you.
Okay. So I was lost with Marky on Row. Martian. Yeah, I'm sorry. I picked up your habit, but I pronounced it Martian. I like how it sounds better. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was completely lost when the concept art came out. And they're like, this is Marchion Rowe. He is leader of the Nile. He is a tall, angry boy in a mask, and he has daddy issues. So I was like, okay, great. Tailored exactly for me. Thank you so much. But then, it's all talk before the book comes out. You have no idea. But then, the book comes out, and here's this guy who is running this gang of pirates who we object with their methods. Blowing up the Legacy run is not the way to go. But the reason behind it, this government is infringing in our territory. They are trying to tell us how to live. They are sending settlers into our space is not a policy I entirely object with. I'm like, you're right. They are essentially colonizing your space. So after that, I'm like, okay, a villain, check. Mask and angry, check. Highly motivated, check. And then, as we get the Rising Storm and all of that, you start to learn that there's a lot going on
Yeah.
with Martian. He's got this like some sort of connection to Force users or people who are trying to use the Force, and then with Tempest Runner, we know he's got some issues with his father. So there's all of this stuff that they're really building into him, into this framework that they set up in Light of the Jedi, that I really, really appreciate. Like they're not going, he's evil because he thinks it's fun. Moving on. They're like, no, let's really examine like Martian Road. Now we've got the Eye of the Storm comics coming out, which I worry because we got a Kylo Ren comic right before Kylo Ren died. So I'm a little nervous.
Oh no.
Like, but
well, you've broken Andres.
I think I put Martian sort of where I classify Kylo, in that they are villains to the galaxy, but they're not 100% wrong.
Okay.
It's where I would classify Martian.
Yeah. I would echo that. I was in the same boat, like seeing the weapon that he had in the concept art with like the yellow like laser beam lightsaber-esque thing going on there. I was like, okay, this is cool. I got very like Gears of War vibe with the chainsaw at the end of the gun, and I was like, oh, you could just hack someone with that. But Light of the Jedi really like was when I was 100% like bought in. I was like, yes, I'm punching my ticket, specifically because of the battle at the end of that book. And essentially like he uses the path engines, and you start seeing a little bit more of like there's another layer to it. Like, yes, he's leading the Nile, and yes, he's pissed about the colonization, but like there's something else, because they were getting whooped on by the Jedi, and he was like, no, I refuse. And like turns
personal.
And all of a sudden he's just like, I'm shuffling the playlist, and even his own troops are like, what? And are just like, jumping into the middle of other ships and whatever, and it's just a mess. And that's what forces the Republic to pull out and be like, we can't fight like sporadic jumps. So from there I was like, okay, there's something else. And then Rising Storm, oh my goodness, for folks who are still reading it, who haven't read it, thinking about it, like go for it, because the personal like Light of the Jedi hints at the very end that like there's another reason he's not willing to go down, and it's not just taking it to the man, so to speak, or to the woman in the case of Lena So, because yes, she can. But yeah, it's like you get into Rising Storm, it's like, oh, like he is on a vendetta, and like there's something family related, like there's a lineage issue going on, that like this is a hate that's passed down, and like he is tired of this family drama, and he is ready to end it. Like he's going to be the one, because he said so, and that makes me excited for whatever comes next.
Yeah, Markion. It took me a while, but he went this way, because same thing. I saw the concept, he looks cool. I didn't Markion Row, Martian Row. It's like, I don't like it. That row at the end didn't. But again, Star Wars names takes a while to get used to them. Right now, you hear that name, oh crap, you get scared. But when I started reading Light of the Jedi and the Nile, I'm like, this is just space pirates. I don't see anything different that we haven't seen before. But by the end, when you see that he has this connection to the Jedi because they did something to his family and he's pissed about it, I'm like, okay, now this is getting interesting. And then, of course, Rising Storm comes out from the beginning when he's trying to find, he's in this planet with his aunt or whoever this person is, and the poor kid, the poor Nile. I remember reading those first few chapters. Martin is helping him when he's kind of falling to the side. Oh, look at his sweet side. I kind of agree with this guy now. And then he just, sorry, spoiler, he just let him die. Whatever, you help me, go die somewhere else. And then he became this brutal guy that we all know. And then, of course, by the end of it and everything that happens and where it's going, it's like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This guy, it's on a path. And then, pun intended. And what's great is that he's same as Palpatine. He's still in the shadows. Like the Republic doesn't know he exists. Oh yeah, Lorna D, that's the leader. She's the eye. And he's like, I'm dealing my stuff over here. So I love that side. I'm so excited to read Eye of the Storm. I don't have those concerns right now. Also, we'll see.
I'm just perpetually worried about my face dying now. So.
Yeah, that's the problem when you love a villain. You're like, I love you, and I know at some point you're going to fall or get introduced to a lightsaber, But
Something's gonna happen, and we don't. I mean, it's 200 years in the past. Maybe he makes it out and lives his life somewhere
He's
with
just
his.
hanging out in the
Yeah.
sequel
Just hanging
trilogy.
out.
I'm not getting involved in it.
Yeah,
I feel like he would have to go to like Star Wars equivalent of Argentina, like no extradition laws, and he's just like hanging out, like drinking a Mai Tai, or the Star Wars equivalent, a fuzzy tauntaun.
There
there
we
you
go.
go.
He's actually just at Oga's, just kind of vibing.
He meets with the cheese, and they go to wild space or the unknown regions out there. He'll be fine with those blue people. They'll take him in.
He'll blend
Yeah.
in. It's fine.
Yeah,
He's like a tan version. They saw him and they're like, he was on Tatooine too long. Like, let's bring him back.
Yeah, that's what happened. Fine. He's our cousin, Mark.
He's got the red eyes probably under that mask. So Marky and Ro just going up in our ranking. And Roberto adds he loves Ro, but I need to see a little bit more from him. But man, what a great start for a character. Excited to see what he'll do. We're all in that same boat. We love him. But then we have Lorna D on the other side. Kind of, I'm tired of this guy just because he's a damn man and his dad was mean to me and he fucking. And
That's right.
she's here now. This is Marky, and she's coming up in
there.
not just taking over the Nile, but just as a villain. What they did with her in Tempest Run, also kind of changed my perception. Because again, the great Kevin Scott out there and do these type of books. Do you see Lorna D surpassing Markion, at least in your villain kind of? Or should she be, let me rephrase, should she be discussed as one of those top Star Wars villains when we do shows like this?
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
In that respect, absolutely.
100%.
All right.
I
So
don't want Martian to die, but I feel like Lorna's gonna kill him.
Yeah. If someone does it, let it be her.
If anybody's gonna kill him, it's gonna
Yeah.
be Lorna.
Yeah.
And I feel like Lorna's taking the vision of, after Tempest Runner, I feel like she is a better representation of the public goal of the Nile.
Mhm.
Because now Martian's on his like, oh no,
Yeah.
we're killing the Jedi, like blood trip. But Lorna is still on like, no, we're about the Nile, let people do what they want. Like we give you true autonomy, and that is what, if you want that, then you join the Nile. And Martian's getting away from that and really falling into like the family drama side of his motivation.
Yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen, at least on my head canon. He's gonna go, you want to lead them now, they're all yours. I got my own thing going on. I think that's what's gonna happen. But we'll see. So we're going a little bit long, and there's a bunch of other villains we can talk about. But before we go to some kind of underrated villains, you have Kylo Ren's shirt. Andres, you have your lightsaber there. Let's see it. There you go.
That's the one, baby.
So let's talk a little bit about one of our favorite kind of sad boys out there, like people say.
Bad boy.
So I love one thing that Maggie put on Twitter. I don't remember what it was a few weeks ago, talking about Kylo Ren or that type of villain. And she just said something like, just let us have our kitty meow meows or something like that.
A little meow meow.
Yeah, every time I see Kylo now, I think of that. But so Andres, starting with you, what is about Kylo Ren that you decided to, I gotta get his lightsaber for one, and then just talk a little bit more about Kylo.
Oh my goodness. For me, when Force Awakens came out, I had like just moved out to Colorado, and the sequel trilogy, I think, is the trilogy I would say that I actually grew alongside with. As far as like, they're in their mid-20s or something, relatively speaking, in the saga, and it's like that's what we're going through. And when I first saw Kylo in Force Awakens, it was just like, he's just very mad. Like he knows he stands on the shoulders of giants, and like he doesn't understand yet how Vader did what he did. He just knows that he was scary, and like when people pissed him off, his grandpa choked people, and he's like, I need the people, but like we can rebuild this computer. And like, he's tech savvy. Like he learned from his uncle, and he's like, you can't kill the people. Like they're unique, they're special, but like this droid, like screw that droid. So that like was my first like initial kind of attraction to him, of just like, he's a kid and he's coming into the world, and someone made him like boy emperor. So he's just like playing emperor. And then Last Jedi like sealed the deal, because you see the scared side of him, and he's like, he doesn't know what's going on. And like, as the audience, we need his knowledge of the Force to understand how Luke passes away in the end, right? Because when him and Rey are having their first connection, he does that calculus of like, that would take way too much effort. You don't have enough life force. Like it's not you, it's something else in the force. So yeah, I was like, okay, he's scared. Like he knows so much, and he's like, I'm stepping into way too much now. Which, you know, that's part of going into that full adult of like, you start adulting and you're like, too much adulting. And then that's when you build your plan of like, okay, this is actually get to where I want to be. So yeah, from there, like by the time of Rise of Skywalker, I was just like, give me that. Give me Kylo. My favorite scene is him walking on Kef Bir after he walks out of the water. It reminds me of like a grumpy wet cat that you just took out. And I love that about him. And I feel like he's leaning into it with how he like browns, and he's just letting the hair all kind of droop around him. But yeah, I love him.
That's we got to 2 Kylo Ren cat kind of comparisons today. So
yes, he is 100% kitty meow meow.
He's a wet cat, but he's also a little meow meow.
Yeah. Didn't think we were gonna hit that, but all right. So also, I know you talked a little bit about the beginning. We talked about Marchion and some of the kind of parallels to Kylo. But what else about Kylo/Ben, I guess, that intrigues you so much? And then I don't know, everything that you can about Kylo.
Yeah. So I remember when Force Awakens was announced, I distinctly remember hearing the name of all the new characters and going, Kylo Ren, that sounds stupid. It's not stupid, it's just new. So so I don't know, I was just kind of into the general aesthetic. I remember I just bought the Kylo Ren phone case from the Disney store because I liked the way it looked. And then the movie comes out, and I was spoiled on who Kylo is and what he does the night before I saw the Force Awakens.
Yes, I remember.
So, like, my brother thankfully tried to cover for it and just kind of be like, I don't know what that spoiler is. That's not what happened. So, I think what interested me in Kylo watching the movie is who he is. Like, because I'd seen like a promo still of Adam Driver, so I just sort of assumed he'd be like a mustache twirling bad guy. And then, you know, when he takes his helmet off for the first time, I'm like, oh, he's actually like, he's quite young. He's not as like old as Adam Driver looks in the promo. I guess the lack of facial hair will do that. So I'm like, he's like quite young, and he's, you know, he's Han and Leia's kid. At the end of the day, you watch the original trilogy, you watch these two fall in love, and here it is like 25 years later or whatever, and their son has fallen to the dark. Like, that is devastating that they've lost him. In The Last Jedi, like Andres said, like, it sealed it. I was like, it's not just that he's fallen to the dark because he thinks it's cool and he's like a Hot Topic goth kid, but like, it's because everybody in his life who was meant to be some kind of support in his mind did wrong by him. And like, they were all doing their best, but like, give me one teenager that thinks that the adults in their life were doing their best. Not a single one believes it. But the thing is, when he's got like, they'll come around. I promise. Your kids will come around.
My daughter's this close to being a teenager. I'm scared now.
When they're teenagers, doesn't matter what you do. In their minds, you're wrong. But the thing about your teenagers is none of them have
a lightsaber
force abilities. None of them are.
Gonna start hiding mine just in case. He comes into a room one day. No force abilities.
There's no force ability. There's nobody in their life telling them that the darkness they feel, the anger, the sadness is something to be ashamed of or something that's going to push them too far. But if that's the life that Ben is hearing, then anytime he's got Snoke or I guess Palpatine's voice in his head, he's like, this is wrong. This is shameful. There's something wrong with this, until that starts telling him what he wants to hear. And Luke starts telling him that what you're thinking is wrong. So of course he fell that way. Palpatine wanted him to fall that way. So that's why, like, I think the best and worst we get, among the best and worst we get from Kylo Ren, happens in The Rise of Skywalker. Like, there was never a doubt in my mind that he was going to flip by the end. I thought it would have happened sooner in the movie. Whatever, that scene with Harrison Ford is beautiful. And as much as I dislike that movie, when I say I like 70% of the sequel trilogy, the 3% that comes from The Rise of Skywalker, that's like half of it. Like, it is a beautiful scene. It's phenomenal. It hits every beat you want it to. And then he, like, you see it in him. You see what a light side Ben Solo looks like in his body language, in the way he fights, and like just the way he carries himself. So, and a part of it does come down to performance. I will say, I don't know that I would feel this strongly about it if it was in text. Like, if it was conveyed in text, it might be, but I don't know. So this is the short of why I like Kylo Ren so much.
Won't not too much because I think you both are completely right. And just a few things, like you said, a lot of people that don't like the sequel trilogy or don't like Kylo Ren will go, "Oh, he's just this emo kid with bad whatever, just hitting things. He doesn't have control." Okay, but you're not seeing everything that you just said of why he got to that point. So it's very important to understand why he got to that point. Like you said, everyone's just telling him that he's wrong, hide your emotions or whatever. Just finishing off with Rise of Skywalker, I was one of those, don't turn him. We've seen this already. I don't want him to die sacrificing himself to save Rey or whoever. I'm not talking about the end. But that scene with Harrison Ford, when I saw it in the movie theater, she just broke me completely. It's incredibly well done. And one of the few kind of ways that, at least for me, that they could do this turn or this redemption was that way. And I love every single second of it. Might be the father in me again. If you have a father and a son getting back together, I'm gonna melt. So I did love that part. All right, so before we jump to our Rebel thoughts and some of you guys is on Twitter kind of favorite villains, and we have one villain that they don't like, and we'll try to convince them otherwise. Do you have one underrated villain that you kind of think should be kind of talked about a little bit more? I'll add mine. I always said it's Dryden Boss. I love everything that he did in Solo. It's a different type of kind of gangster out there that we were used to. And I hope we get more with him. Unfortunately, we can't get anything in the past Solo, maybe something before. He kind of made that cameo in Clone Wars Season 7 when Maul is having this conversation with his group. But Dryden Boss, I just love everything about him. But also, is there one kind of underrated villain you wish you can get more of?
I mean, we kind of talked about her, but Asajj Ventress, I think, just because what we do get is so good.
Yeah.
That I kind of wish that there was, more like pre-Dark Disciple, or you know what? She's a magical witch that they put in a magical lake. Like, just bring her back. It's fine. Somehow Asajj Ventress has returned. Done.
There we go. It's done.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't think her story is finished yet. So I would like some more Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, I think there would even be so much opportunity during the reign of the Empire timeline of just playing. There's so many places to play, but Captain Kennedy, I love that man. Like the way that he just chews out General Hux while Poe is blowing up his turbo lasers, and then another First Order officer's like, "Oh, that X-wing's never gonna penetrate our armor." He's like, shut up, everyone! Are the cannons primed? And like, "Oh yeah, they're ready to go, boss." He's like, "What? Literally, what are we waiting for? Fire on space!" That is a canon line in Star Wars, and it's just yes, he's a mature Krennic. He's what Krennic should have been in Rogue One, of mad and angry, but at the same time, 100% aware of what was going on, and just surrounded by idiots. And
I will say, I also don't think we got enough Hux. I like the potential of Hux. I like that the books have a lot of Brendel Hux, so you kind of see why his son is like that. And I just feel like I wish we'd gotten a bit more, I don't know, comic run or something.
Yeah, he shows up on Rise of Resistance too a little bit, and Disney knows what they have in Hux. Where I'm just we need more of him, and they know where to sprinkle him in.
When I went to Galaxy's Edge, it wasn't open yet, so I didn't get to go.
It's okay. One day this will be the old ride, and there'll be a 2-minute wait for Rise of the Resistance.
Yeah. That's when we all get to go. All right, so that kind of brings our villain talk to a close, at least our main villain talk. I mean, we have so many more we didn't talk. We didn't get to talk about Tarkin, Jabba the Hutt, Pong Krell, Grievous, one of my favorites. No, let's just play this. He's the worst. All right, well, let's go to our chat out there, to our friends on Twitter that send us their thoughts in our segment, Rebel Thoughts. All right, and we'll go through this pretty quickly because we've talked about them mostly already. And we start with our friend at King Kyber. They said, one of my absolute favorite is Trilla Suduri. Her whole story is just really tragic because she was a good person till she was betrayed by someone she saw as her mother. I was physically and mentally tortured. I couldn't finish. But So this is from the Jedi Fallen Order video game, which I haven't played, but I've seen the whole cinematic. So Malik is saying Trilla Suduri. So have you guys, do you know her story? I
Oh yeah.
know people love her. Your master kind of failed you, got taken by Vader and turned into the second sister, is it? It's an Inquisitor. And yeah, a great villain out there. What can you guys say about Trilla real quick?
Justice for Trilla. Justice for Trilla. It's so sad. And I think like these villains that they do best, you go back in their story and it's just very, very sad. Like she was betrayed by her master, like it not intentionally, but what does that matter when you're being tortured? You don't care.
Sure.
Right.
And then sort of like you see how much pain she's in throughout the game and it kind of gets worse and worse and worse. And then I don't want to spoil what happens in the end, but yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Trilla is like a fantastic character.
Yeah, a true tragedy. It's just watching her story and then also seeing it as the foil in Cal. Like Trilla and Cal are Seers. Basically like Seer is Luke in that kind of like game as far as the stories are concerned, right? She loses one apprentice and like the Force essentially guides her towards another one, and like seeing all of those elements play together just make Trilla such a fascinating character.
They're very
Alright.
Kylo and Rey, her and Cal.
Yes.
Right, so Trilla, yeah. Try to get some video game villains here. All right, so our friend Mo, she's in the chat. She adds at Jean Maisado, we'll get her Twitter handle out there. Best villains to me are Maul and Krennic. Maul, because though no longer Sith, still relies heavily on anger and hatred to fuel his power. And I'll put it again because I saw it late. And where am I? If he's on screen, it's bound to be iconic, and Krennic, master manipulator, fooling Galen for so long and tearing his family apart. So we talked a little bit already about Maul and Krennic. So thank you, Mo. Anything else you guys want to add? I think
I agree.
we talked. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Hard to agree.
Yeah. And our friend also, Roberto, adds, for me, Palpatine, the fact that he was so evil that his deeds are felt through generations. And yeah, we mentioned Palpatine, kind of everything starts with him, and a lot of great villains kind of are his pedigree. So yeah, it's one of the favorites out there for most people. Also out there in the chat, our friend Amy at Guerra de Galaxia adds, Lorna D and Ventress occupy similar places in my heart because they're villains who have a heartbreaking backstory and who, for all their evil and destruction, still feel a pull toward compassion. Again, we talked about this great villain, so thank you, Amy, and they are great. They're so great out there. All right, so let's do this one. This is again from Malik at King Kyber, and this is one he doesn't like. He doesn't like Kylo Ren. And he writes, Kylo, I just feel that the whole story he goes under tries to absolve him of as much responsibility as possible and gave off too much. He's not evil. He's just misunderstood vibes.
Yeah.
So
He's not evil. He's just misunderstood.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my take on it. But
all right. So
I would
Andres,
also,
if you had Malik here, or anyone out there that kind of doesn't understand or sees Kylo in a different kind of way, what would you say to try to kind of convince them that he's a good villain for this reason?
yeah, I mean, I would say just like take solace in the fact that the story essentially puts a burden on him so great that he still pays for it with his life. Mm-hmm. He does it for a different reason, right? But like, he lived, technically speaking. You get to the end of the movie and like he was alive. He chose to give that up. He could have gone on an atonement spree. He could have whatever. But like, as far as the story went, he actually got to survive, but he still chose death. And like, there's something to be said for that because he still played Baby Emperor. Like, I always go back to Force Awakens and it's like, him and Hux are fighting about like, should we use clone troopers? Should we use your kidnapped children? I don't know. But like, he is still going along with it, right? Like, he decides to be evil when Han Solo shows up because he sees Hux fire a laser and blow up Hosnian Prime and is like, okay, like he almost gives the saber away until he sees the light disappear in Force Awakens and then rams it into his father's chest. Sorry. But yeah, it's like he does still have agency. Like, yes, he's conflicted by it, but he does bad things. And like, if you're raising a child, right, you still punish bad behavior, and like the plot creates a punishment. It's not in the way that, it's not like Rey bonks him on the head and is like, bad Kylo, like you're a bad person. But the plot still resolves it with like, yes, he's done terrible things. He'd rather let Rey and that legend continue than like the complicated legacy that would come with letting Kylo Ren / Ben Solo stay alive. So yeah, weird execution. Many different ways that you could have landed that plane, but all things considered, it's like, okay, that kind of resolves that concern where it's like, yeah, he definitely was a misunderstood character, but like the galaxy pushed him to a point where he still had to atone for it, right? Like if you're really that concerned about it, the galaxy still treats him like a villain, and when Rey comes back, she is alone and confirms, I assume, to everyone in the Resistance that like, yeah, he died. He did not come back with me.
Sad story.
Yeah, it's a tragedy.
Yeah,
Darth Vader's a terrible villain, and all he was just a dude who missed his son. Like,
I don't know. I don't like you guys know how I feel about this, about the execution, and I don't think that it's comparable to Vader, because I feel like Vader was instrumental for a couple decades, whereas Kylo Ren was there for like 5 or 6 years. Still not great. I am not excusing his actions.
He's like fascist light.
Like, that's the thing, is like, it's a lot of, I feel like Hux is going to go full Krennic with the amount of times people give Kylo credit for the stuff that Hux does. He's like, my name on the assignment. I built Starkiller Base. What are you doing? But I feel like it would have been a more interesting narrative for an atonement mission, because I do think it's quite cynical to have him actively make these choices in a way that, like, Vader died by accident. Vader didn't choose it. He died because his life support machine was shorted out. But like, he did make a lot of active choices to not be this way anymore, and to let go of the darkness, and to sort of realize that this is not his journey. And I feel like that, treating that as like a way to make the galaxy better now as a result of his actions, because Rey goes back and goes, he's dead. It's like, okay, that's nice. The First Order is still a thing, but at least this guy is gone. Like, feels a little cynical to me. Yeah. But that's my take on it.
All right, so we had one more. We had one more that came in late, so we won't talk about it, but I'll just mention it. So at Jedi Geek Girls, she's not a fan of Boba Fett. We know how I love Boba Fett and what they're doing with him, but we don't have time to get into it. And again, because I see him on a different type of villain, not really. All right, so that kind of brings an end to our show. So let me say hi one last time to our friend Obi-Wan Kenobi. Odie, he was here last week. He's saying hi. He just get here because of our power outage. Again, Puerto Rico, that happens, unfortunately, a few times a day. Power outage goes there for hours. But he'll listen to it later. So thank you guys, everyone that was in the chat. Thank you, everyone that sent their questions on their villains. Great talk. Thank you, Arezou. Thank you, Andres. Arezou, where can people see you and find you? And before you say, you're going to be here again next week, our first ever trivia challenge, prequel trilogy. So we'll save the trash talk for later, but can't wait for it. So where can people find you out there?
Yeah, no unfair advantage in early trash talk. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Arezou Amin. That's where I am most often. Probably talking about Martian, and if not, I'm definitely talking about Ben Solo. Otherwise, you can find me on the Geeky Waffle Network pretty widely, writing on the site, on all of the podcasts, and that's also where my podcast, Space Waffles, is hosted. So yeah, it's pretty general Star Wars talk on there, and those are the best places to find me. Oh, and my site, I forgot about my site, arezouD2.com. So that's mostly Star Wars book reviews. There are some other books on there too, but Star Wars deep dives for the book specifically is on my site.
Okay. And Andres, where can people find you and your pod?
So I am on Twitter at AAA_photog. I tweet pretty sporadically and about very random stuff. The podcast that myself, Des, Roberto, and Paula are all co-hosts for is Sithty Minutes. So that is our Star Wars and politics a little bit of Star Wars, a little bit of politics, then randomness as we play different games each week. But that you can find anywhere that fine podcasts are downloaded and curated.
All right. So again, thank you guys. Pleasure as always. Love talking to you guys. A lot of fun today. Can't wait for next week. Like I said, Arezou is gonna be here. Hannah is gonna be here. Andrew Geha from Outer Rim Reads, the guys from In a Galaxy Pod. We have 5 competitors talking prequel trilogy, trivia championship. It's gonna be great. Just a lot of fun. And myself at Radio Rebel Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And every new show every Saturday at 5 p.m. And then the audio version comes out on Monday. Probably after next week, we'll take a week off because I think I'll need a break after next week. But as always, guys, thank you for being here. Stay safe, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
Rebellions are built on hope.